Welcome back to BYoungMinistry.com, to another blog and another podcast. Today we're in 1 Timothy chapter 5, verses 3 and 4, which read, "Give proper recognition to those widows who are really in need. But if a widow has children or grandchildren, these should learn first of all to put their religion into practice by caring for their own family, and so repaying their parents and grandparents. For this is pleasing to God." That's 1 Timothy chapter 5, verses 3 and 4. The God of the Bible has always had a heart for the least and the vulnerable. Throughout the Bible, we see God caring for the alien, the outcast, the poor, the fatherless, and the widowed. This is one of the many measurements of the purity of God's love. He is by nature loving, and when we access His love, it begins to define us. It is then we will reflect Him in the way we treat others. In Psalm 68, verse 5, we read, "A father to the fatherless, a defender of widows, is God in His holy dwelling." It is the father heart of God that makes Him quick to protect the widows and orphans who have lost those who once protected and provided for them. In Deuteronomy 27 and 19, we discover there awaits for those who abuse widows a curse from God. In Exodus 22 and verse 23, when widows cry out for help, God says, "I will hear your cry." God knows and always comes to the assistance of those who are in need. In verse 3 of today's text, we read, "Give proper recognition to those widows who are really in need." We are most like God when we care for those who have lost their husbands due to death, desertion, abandonment, imprisonment, or divorce. The fact is, they are alone and in need of help, financial help. To give proper recognition to the widows means to honor them, to show them our respect, to show them our care, and to give them our support. In verse 4, we read, "But if a widow has children or grandchildren, these should learn first of all to put their religion into practice by caring for their own family and so repaying their parents and grandparents. For this is pleasing to God." It is the responsibility of children and grandchildren to support their widowed mother or grandmother. The family has the first responsibility to take care of widows before they're ever put on the church's list of responsibility. As we have pointed out before, the family is the context where true spirituality is revealed. Henry Scougal once wrote, "The worth of a soul is measured by the object of its love." And when we're loving the least, those that can't love us in return, in like manner, that reveals the quality of our love. When a child or a grandchild takes care of their widowed mother or grandmother who are needy, it pleases God when we take care of them. In Hebrews 11:6, we read, "Without faith it is impossible to please God." The word faith is the noun form of the word believe or trust. Thus, pleasing God is inextricably bound to trusting Him. Pleasing God is the result of trusting Him. There is nothing that we can conjure up to please Him that is not based upon who He is and what He has already done in and through His Son. We please God by choosing to trust Him, to trust that His provision is enough through His Son. When our main drive becomes growing in trust, a whole new world opens to us. We get to exhale. We get to take a deep breath and relax, trusting that He has made us acceptable through His Son. We can finally rest, knowing that we're fully loved and fully accepted. Incredibly, when trusting God becomes our primary motive, it allows us to run like we couldn't run before. And this is no hamster wheel. This is a joyful race because it fuels us and fills us. And it brings pleasure to God. In 1 Timothy chapter 2, verses 3 and 4, we read, "This is good and pleases God our Savior, who wants all men to come to a knowledge of the truth." The same word used here for pleases in this verse is also used in our text for today. The desires of God unveil His pleasure, and His primary pleasure is to save the lost. This desire led Him to provide His Son as the ransom for all who are helpless and hopeless. And by the way, that's all of us. We are most like Him when we find great pleasure in rescuing the destitute. Of course, we rescue the destitute best when we are sharing the gospel of His Son with them. You see, it not only touches their temporal needs, but it touches the most important, their eternal needs. My friends, I trust this blog and this podcast are helpful to you in your walk with the Lord. If I can be of further assistance to you, don't hesitate to shoot me an email at BYoungMinistry@gmail.com. Hey, have a great day.